Oh, there's the audio. I found it. Let's see if that worked. Oh, there's the audio. Aha! I found it. Let's see if that worked. Success. So that's good. Okay. We're running. Mike, do you want to scoot up a little closer?
Yeah.
One more sound check here. Mike, do you want to scoot up a little closer? Looks good. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I'll just get everything kind of ready here. Let people make their way on in. Thanks, Felipe. Appreciate your help. Okay, so we've got questions preloaded for us. I got forum questions. I got personal reach outs. We'll just give it a couple minutes and then we'll get started. All right, we got some chatter already. Tony's asking us, how early is it in Australia, mate? It's about 9 a.m. here. So we're like on a 10-hour time difference from the East Coast. So it's like your evenings are our mornings and vice versa. It's not terrible. It wasn't a terrible switch over, but it did take a day or two to adjust. So not terrible. Tony and Felipe, always on. I don't think they've missed one yet. Mm-hmm. Give it another minute, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Actually, let's go ahead and get started. All right, RP Plus, welcome back. Dr. James and Mike here live from Brisbane, Australia. A little different this time around. Sorry for the time change. We're kind of in between our hotels. We had to check out of one hotel and we couldn't be here from the normal 8 p.m. time slot. So we had to move it up either an hour or later. So we appreciate you guys being flexible. So Mike, what do you think of Australia so far?
You know, I've been here before, and when I came the first time, I was expecting kangaroos to be the police officers and panda bears to be the koala. Shut up. The koala bears to be truck drivers and taxi cab operators. But both times I have been sorely disappointed. Australia is just a modern Western country with advanced capitalism and skyscrapers, and it's nice for what it is. But I demand zoo animals be in charge.
We went to the Lone Pine Koala Animal Sanctuary, and it was amazing. You can just show up, buy some kangaroo food, and they have this huge open area where you can go and like hang out with emus and kangaroos and wallabies and feed them and pet them and just hang out. There's like hundreds of them. It was super fun. So, down to business.
Let's do it.
All right, I have some questions kind of preloaded as always. Sorry, I know I was not diligent about answering on the forum this week, but I'm going to answer all the ones that are queued up in the forum. So first off, Shimmy Hacker asks, if a certain body weak, higher volume, maybe 12 to 15 rep block when absolutely needed. I find my that my chest and my hamstrings will fall within this recommendation, and when I get to high set numbers like 20 or more for chest while using the 10-12 range, I don't really get sore. I just get tired.
Same here.
Yeah. So you're there's going to be a lot of individual variability on some of that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. That works totally fine. Some muscle groups like hamstrings are just inherently more fast twitch than others. Totally normal. And then for some people, like you might have to work in lower or higher rep ranges depending on your fiber typing, which is a normal part of individualization. Absolutely.
Yep.
So nothing too fancy there, right?
Yeah, if you're really straightforward.
And you can kind of gauge it by how you feel like during your workouts. Like if you get great pumps and you feel awesome, like when you're working in like 5 to 8, you're probably more on the fast switch side. And if you feel like you're just like a volume whore and you can just blast out like 10 to 15 all the time without blinking an eye, you're probably more slow twitch, and that's totally fine.
Yeah, remember that it's good to work through all rep ranges. You still want to train your slow twitch muscle fibers. They do exist, even if they're not your most common ones. So you still want to have a diversity of rep ranges even within 1 week, possibly even within one workout, but the total average of the diversity goes one way or another depending on how fast or slow twitch you are. So will you still do 8s and 6s if you're pretty slow twitch? Yeah, you'll just do less sets of them in any one given workout, less workouts of them in any given one given week, or less exercises focusing on that lower rep range. And your phases over the course of months will just occupy less time in those low volume phases. But if you're more fast twitch, then the opposite will be true, where you just train on average heavier. And, people know what it's like to be fast twitch and try slow twitch stuff, which means you kind of just get tired and not even really that sore or that pumped. The opposite is kind of an effect for people who are really slow twitch but trying to lift super heavy. So you feel like slow twitch biceps or something. You're trying to do sets of 6 in the bicep curl. It is like everything hurts. Your joints hurt. You don't even get a pump. You don't feel anything in the muscle. But every time you go over 10 reps or you start slowing down the eccentric, you get this massive pump and you get really sore. That's kind of like what it probably is telling you that you're more slow twitch than you thought you were. Okay, nice question. I'm going to move on. We're on a quick kind of abbreviated schedule today, so we might keep some of these questions a little shorter, but we'll try to answer them in depth as always. Regarding intra and post-workout carbs, how much is too much and how much is ideal? Is there a baseline recommendation? I've heard 20 to 40 grams of intra-workout carbs is plenty, and half of one's body weight in carbs post-workout is the top end. What's the story? How does reconfigure their intra and post-carb intake given the level of volume and intensity of their training? So a really easy place to start, which does not account for individual differences, does not account for training volume, is the typical glycogen repletion protocol that you see in the literature, which is somewhere around 0.8 to 1 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight per hour. Good place to start if you don't know. That might be overestimating if you're doing kind of a light workout, and it could be vastly underestimating in some cases if you're doing like a peak week, like crazy volume workout. Mike, you want to chime in on that one? This is an exceedingly complex question that requires an entire book chapter to answer. Yeah. I would direct you back to the Renaissance diet ebook. It's a little outdated at this point, but it's got some good stuff in it, so that's kind of a good discussion. We're going to be working on the version 2.0, and we'll have more of that talk. Speaking, I would say that under most circumstances, no more than a quarter of your daily carbohydrate macros should be in this shake. Oh, Nick Shaw's here, everyone. Hey, Nick. Hi, Nick. Nick's, just so you guys know, Nick is dedicated. He's been texting us while we were in Australia like, hey, get on the webinar. What's wrong with you guys?
Where's my face?
Oh, it's a delay. Oh. It'll show up in a minute. All right. Next question. When programming for youth, ages about 12 to 16, in sport like basketball, would you agree that one should focus the bulk of their program with a low to moderate volume hypertrophy phase in the 8 to 12 rep range and then add strength here and there to resensitize?
Yes.
Yes, largely yes. So the problem and I think we actually talked about this in one of the ones I did a week or two ago. One of the problems that we see a lot with youth athletics is coaches treating them like Olympic level athletes where they're doing these crazy peaking phases, tons of plyos, way too much weightlifting stuff, way too much maximal strength stuff. When you're working with youth athletes, like I'll say middle school age to high school age, one of the best things you can do is teach them technique first and then get them in that work capacity hypertrophy range, peppering in some basic strength training every now and again.
Yep.
Absolutely. Now, if you have somebody who's at like the top end of their like high school athletic career, so if they're in like the 99th percentile of their peers, right, where they're probably going to go and play D1 college ball, they're thinking about potentially playing in the NBA at some point. Can you do a little bit more maximal strength stuff? Maybe teach them some weightlifting techniques? Sure, but that should not represent the bulk of their training. The bulk of their training should be hypertrophy, work capacity building type stuff, and that will pay out huge dividends 5-6 years from then, right? They might not see it right then and there, but later, man, oh man, are they going to be prepped for competition? Okay, another question regarding youth programming. This is one pertaining to body part splits during a week. Would you agree with giving them full body routines instead of push and pull? With full body routines, they train each body part more often, but have their volume spread out more throughout the week. In addition, because volume is spread, but also moderate to begin with, they aren't overly fatigued when they engage in their other sport-specific practices. Would love your thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, I generally tend to agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. Like just the youth people, the frequency considerations are largely the same. What you will find as adults, for the most part, but what you will find with working with youth athletes is they're going to spend more time actually doing their sports stuff, right? They're going to be doing wrestling practice, basketball practice,
you
baseball.
might only have 3 total workouts with them. So.
Exactly, right? They're going to be doing that stuff 6, possibly even 7 days per week if they have games and stuff. So you're just going to have less workouts. So I think that's totally fine. The frequency considerations are largely the same for adults, just the volume is reduced because of their age. So that's basically that in a nutshell. Yeah, that's it from Shimmy. Thanks for the great questions as always. I'm going to go to the forum. So we're going to look at that real quick. Mike, you want to tackle this one? There's some Russian in here. I can't read that. Bazadar Batov.
As far as I know, this one Russian doctor guy has invented a training methodology similar to BFR, which is blood flow restriction training. In the 1950s, that proved to be quite effective in the years. Unfortunately, everything is in Russian, and wondering what Dr. Mike thinks about this technique and if there's any literature in English. Don't know who that guy is. Don't read Russian fast enough to make any sense of that, and have no idea, and have never heard of any literature in English. So best of luck. But if it's similar to BFR, you can probably adopt some of the principles there. And I'll tell you, it's not going to be very magical. Blood flow restriction training is cool. It just loses effects after a couple of weeks because it's a novel stimulus, but it's not an overly effective one. I've tried to get away from trying to lift progressively heavier weights in the normal rep ranges for a long time. It doesn't work. Still got to train heavy. So it might be some cool stuff there. But if you're interested in looking into it, then go ahead. I haven't seen anything on it.
Yeah, I'm not overly familiar. I can't even read that, frankly. So the name wouldn't even ring a bell at this point. But there is a ton of stuff on there on blood occlusion training, blood flow restriction, whatever you want to call it. And then in the Japanese literature, which there's actually quite a bit, it's called Katsu, Kaatsu training. And I'm going to guess probably whatever you see there is going to be in line with whatever you see in any of that other stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Boz. I hope I said that right. Bozadar. We're going to move on. Another forum question from Matthew Hamill. Hey guys, I'm currently beginning using your templates and I have a few questions based on my current situation. Currently, I am deployed and the possibility of having multiple smaller meals throughout the day is not possible in my situation. What would be a recommendation to combat this? I have access to 3 meals a day and I can supplement snack foods that do not expire like peanut butter, jerky, etc.
Order from the United States a bunch of protein bars, and jerky is combined with that pretty good. Peanut butter is like, I don't know if it's a great snack because it's just a bunch of fat. You want protein and some carbs for sure for snacks to keep you mentally alert, to keep your muscles growing or at least not falling off of you, and to make sure that you're not weighed down and heavy when you have to be operative. So I would say order some protein bars, combine them with jerky. Stay hydrated because that jerky will dehydrate you because it's so salty.
Yeah. And that's just good to keep, just to have that extra little protein boost. You can get like the majority of your calories, carbs, veggies, healthy fats from your 3, structured meals. And then that's just there, the protein bars and the jerky, just to keep you going when you have long periods without food. Number 2 question. My usual schedule means I'm conducting 2-a-days regularly, mostly just cardio or Metcon in the mornings. However, would you recommend using the 2-a-day template still on each day I do so? Or should those specifically be used in lieu of strict 2-a-day workouts consisting of 2 gym-based sessions? The 2-a-day templates are made for 2 hard sessions, right? So the thing, and this is not meant to like knock on CrossFit or any of that stuff, but generally those sessions are so short in duration, like a Metcon or a WOD, something like that, usually like 20, 30 minutes after warm-up. So really, the 2-a-day templates is probably not necessary at that point. If you want to bump up your base carbs a little bit, if you're feeling like you're dragging ass and not getting enough, that's okay. But for the most part, you probably don't have to adjust too much.
Yeah, and if you have trouble getting in meal frequency, the 2-a-day templates are going to be a giant waste for you because they're super highly dependent on frequency and require a very high one. So.
Yeah, 2-a-day templates really is more for like 2 gym style workouts where you're able to prep and do all that other stuff. So regular non-2-a-day template, and then if you need to fudge your carbs a little bit to match your demands, that's totally fine. All right, here we go. Being in temperatures of 120 degrees and more each day, are there any other factors to consider when the following nutrition plans, besides drinking extra amounts of water to combat dehydration? I probably should have stated earlier, but I'm following a CrossFit-style program focused on Olympic lifting in the evenings and Metcon cardio work in the morning. So super high temperatures.
Drink a lot of water and make sure your electrolytes match. Don't just flood yourself with water. Maybe get some of those Gatorade Zero, Powerade Zero little electrolyte packets, put them in your water every now and again. But if you're eating a lot of food, potentially as well as beef jerky, I think you should be just fine.
Yeah. You can even get the little, like, they make the Mio ones now too, where they have like Mio with electrolytes. You can squirt it into your water. Tastes pretty good. Helps so you don't get super, super crazy. All right, Matt, thank you very much for your forum questions. Oscar Arnett asks, my question is regarding cramping. Some of my body parts have always had problems with cramping, mainly hamstrings, calves, and feet. If I twist or flex them in a certain way, they will cramp as if on command. Recently, within the last few months, other body parts have started to cramp, for example, abs, hips, waist, lower lats. It's become quite bothersome. For the answer to be more suited for everyone to use, not just me, my question is, what causes cramps? What are some possible solutions for cramps in general in regards to what the literature says and what the doctor experiences have shown them? Cramps. There are so many different things.
Highly mysterious. Yeah, I have no idea.
There's a lot of different things that can cause cramping. Some of the common ones are like dehydration, electrolyte imbalances. Sometimes you actually get cramps from being acutely overreached. Sometimes you just get like the nerves are firing funny, start to get like your muscles will tighten up.
Some people just cramp a lot.
Some people just cramp a lot. I had a rugby guy. He would go down every game, and we tried our best. We made sure he was hydrated. We had him take more electrolytes in. We made sure his fatigue management was good. Guaranteed calves would cramp up, have to stop during the game. Some people are prone to cramping. However, if you're having more like systemic cramping where it's starting to cramp all the way across your body like that, not just in like 1 or 2 problem spots, I'd say like probably want to get that checked out at the doctor. It sounds like something else might be going on there. And I know this is kind of the short, dirty answer, but like if there are some common places that get cramps, like hamstrings, calves. For a lot of athletes, a lot of people, they get cramped up from time to time. We really don't understand fully why it happens, but that's kind of within the normal realm, right? If you are starting to experience cramping all over the body in weird places and it's progressively getting worse, you might have some weird thing going on. And I would say follow up with your general practitioner at that point, because it sounds like something funny and unusual. You know what I mean? Anything else?
Yeah.
Cramps are weird. What are the markers to determine my MRV for weightlifting and strength? I'm using male physique template at the moment, and I finally understand MRV in the context of physique, which is based on soreness first, then performance. I'm assuming for weightlifting, the speed and ease flow of the movement at a particular percentage of 1RM would be an indicator. How about strength moves?
That's a really easy one. Strength, how strong are you compared to normal? If you're training at a certain training volume and your strength is at or above what your normally is, you're hitting PRs or pretty close to them, then you don't have anything to worry about. If you keep pushing your volume higher and you end up decreasing in strength, then it's affecting your strength moves. That volume is too high and it is above your MRV. If you play around with your volume over the period of several months, and every time you push up to a certain volume, you see that your strength starts to falter, then you know that it is reliably your MRV and that you should stay away from that number most times. For power, it's actually quite simple. You can get a movement velocity reading if you'd like to make this technical, which you can. And when your velocity drops off after a certain volume, your MRV for power has been exceeded. But there's an easier way. Are you making your weightlifting movements?
Yeah.
Because making them means that you have to have exerted your highest power. So if you're hitting at or close to repetition maxes or 1RMs for weightlifting movements, then you're good to go. But if you start to be sluggish and technically improficient and start to miss lifts that you normally would get, you're over your MRV.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the big misnomers now is using the velocity systems to monitor bar speed, like the Tendo unit or the push band, or they have a couple other ones, like the Beast is like a little Bluetooth one you can put on there. And people say like, oh, I'm slowing down. That means I'm overreached, right? Well, no, it just means that you might be carrying around some fatigue. Are you missing lifts to the point, like, if you're not making lifts, that's a more significant problem. But like if you're doing a strength phase and you're hitting 5x5s, a clean pull from the floor, squat, and then maybe some presses, and then the next day you're going to do your clean and jerk singles, right, or your snatch singles, and you're not moving that fast, but you're still making the lifts, that's perfectly fine. So there's also not, and this is just me ranting, but there's also not a clearly established drop-off threshold for a lot of the speed stuff, right? So you can measure the speed, you can see it dropping off, but this is the big limitation of using those devices. In order to actually effectively do testing and monitoring with the speed device, you have to create a force velocity curve across a number of exercises, across a huge spectrum of sets and reps for your athlete before you can say with any certainty that they are dropping off too much in any given area. So, I mean, you're going to have to put in like a year of data collection at the current time before you know how much is too much, because there's not really anything to that. None of the literature has concisely said, here's the drop-off for fatigue management, or here's the drop-off when they're having a bad day or deload or whatever. So at the current time, that is a major limitation. So I would not use speed characteristics for calculating MRV at all. However, missing lifts and all the things that Mike already said about strength are golden. Mm-hmm. So they're cool. They're cool devices, and I've messed around with them, but there's just not enough. There's just not enough there at the moment. And hopefully more comes out and we can figure out how to do it. All right, Daniel Jolly, always a regular. Good evening. Near where I live, there's a mountain, and there's a trail on the mountain allowing one to climb the mountain. Okay, excellent. It's called the Grouse Grind, and it's basically a staircase that will take me about 50 minutes of near-death cardio effort to climb. But it's a fun near-death that I used to do all the time, and I haven't done it since doing the whole weight training thing, and I miss it, and I want to do it. My question is, when would be the best time to do this in the context of an RP weight training template schedule so that it will have the least detrimental impact on my weight training?
Okay. My best advice is, this won't ever potentiate your training, is probably not that good for you for being jacked and big, but it's a lot of times a dose thing. Just do it once a week, maybe twice a week, and it shouldn't be a big deal. And when you do it, should be just pretty far away from your big hard leg workouts. So a good recommendation is, like, if you train legs twice a week, or if you train them 3 times a week and there's like a distinctly easier workout, do it before your easier workout, like the day before or earlier that day, or do it after. Or if it's twice a week legs, then do it way away from any of the workouts so that you don't interfere with how good the workout is or from the anabolic signaling.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with making a lifestyle compromise. So, we can appreciate people wanting to be hardcore and doing things as rigidly and as hard as possible, and that's cool. But if you're not competing in sport, if you're just doing it to look good naked or just, whatever, there's nothing wrong with taking a hike and making a slight compromise in your training program, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Just know, like Mike said, there's nothing about that hike that's going to help you be bigger, stronger, or more jacked. But if it's something that you enjoy and is part of your lifestyle, then that's totally fine, right? So just take some steps. And I would even say, like, just save it maybe once per mesocycle or so if you're really worried about it. That way you can still do it, you can still enjoy it, and you're not too, it's not like a crazy thing. So just don't feel like you have to take those things out. I mean, if you want to be like the best bodybuilder, then yes, that's something you probably have to consider removing, or off-season activity only. But other than that, who cares? Go for it. Have fun. Okay, another question, quite similar. Before weight training, indoor rowing was my thing. I want to try a 2K. This would likely be about a 6.5 minutes of full-on exertion, of which the last 3 minutes will have me close to vomiting. In the last minute, I'll be delirious, and I won't be able to see straight for about 10 minutes afterwards. Again, in the context of the schedule templates, when should I take this test? 2K time trial, basically.
Far away from workout. That's really big.
I would say you could also do it like at the end of your deload, right? At the last 2 days of your deload or so, when it's really not going to set you back too hard for the next mesocycle, and it won't, none of the training fatigue will really detrimentally hurt it. So that's something you could throw in. I don't want to say, anytime. Just know, like, if you do it the next day, it's not going to go well if you try and pull like from the floor or if you try and squat. But other than that, no big deal. I would say deload's probably a good time. Okay.
I can answer that question pretty quickly.
This one?
Yeah, so Steve Blair says, I'm coming to the end of a strength meso and I'm looking into doing a 1 meso 6-week fairly aggressive cut. Would this sort of cut require maintenance phase afterwards? Cuts don't require maintenance phase afterwards unless you want to continue cutting further. So the question is, or should I jump straight into massing? Yes. The answer is you should always jump straight into massing. Period. Unless you don't want to mass, and then you take a maintenance phase. Right? So you don't ever have to maintain after cutting if your goal is eventual bigger muscle gain. And it says, since it's recommended to cut during a hypertrophy phase, I'm concerned I'll be somewhat adapted to higher volumes when I switch back to massing. That's just fine. Whereas breaking it up with another strength maintenance phase for volume restoration will set me up for a longer run of 2 to 3 massing phases. What you have to do is you take a mini cut. Your average volume of a mini cut is not going to be that high because your MRV is reduced because you're cutting. When you come back to massing, you can train at a higher volume because you have so much recovery to build. After that mass phase, you might need to take a maintenance phase, maybe a little bit of a mini cut that's like 3 or 4 weeks, lose 0.5% a week, lower volumes to really resensitize, and then keep going for 2 or 3 mass phases after that. But I would say your best bet after a 6-week pretty aggressive mini cut is to go right back into massing.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about that first mesocycle coming off of the cut after they've been doing the really, really high volume training? Typically, a lot of us treat, when they do the mass rebound, we still want to be cognizant of the volume resensitization, but they still have to move into massing at the same time.
Yeah, I actually
right?
presented about that on my Advanced Hypertrophy London seminar. So I think that because your volume is super high on a cut, but it's never going to be as high as it is on the top end of a mass because you simply can't recover from that much. So your volume on cutting is going to be somewhere like this. Your first mesocycle after you come back from massing can be here. So I think you should blast it with a mass right when you come back and then do like a mini cut / maintenance phase to clear all the air and then keep massing back up.
Solid. Thank you, Steve. Sorry, it took us a little longer than usual to get to you. All right, we got our pre-questions all taken care of. There were, Nick's back. Felipe had a question here. All right. Hi, guys. In the strength phase context, I've taken my quads MRV and subtracted my spinal erectors MRV to find out how much squatting I should be doing before starting the non-spinal erectors movements, as Dr. Mike talked about when we chatted. And I found I could fit 2 to 3 top sets of low bar squat with 2 down sets, or 2 to 3 top sets of low bar squat and 3 to 4 sets of pause squat. I can't relate the cause and effect, but I had more progress doing the latter. If there's a cause and effect relationship, could it be a direct one, variation itself, or an indirect one, the difference in volume? But either way, it seems like I should be doing a variation instead of more down sets. Besides potentiation effect, I thought about implementing more variations. So, okay, let's see if we can narrow this down into a more concise question.
Well, so let's see. Either way, it seems, so I had more progress doing the latter. If there's a cause-effect relationship, could it be a direct one, variation itself, or an indirect one, difference in volume? Both are possibilities.
Yeah.
With a sample size of 1 and 1 mesocycle, it's impossible to tell which one it is. So you might as well stop perseverating on it. Every now and again, I'll do the mesocycle and wonder, why did that go well? You have no idea. Got to repeat it. Either way, it seems like I should be doing a variation instead of more down sets. That's only a supposition. The variation has the advantage that if it's a not axially loading variation or as much, like, for example, pause squats, high bar versus more low bar squats, you might be able to get in more volume. If you are far away from a competition, this is a good thing. And if you want hypertrophy, it's a good thing. If you're closer to the competition, you're doing more strength, you shouldn't be training with that much volume anyway. And specificity is the king principle. So then you may actually just do more low bar down sets. Some kind of potentiation effect has been reported when doing variation instead of more down sets. I think Mike Teixeira talks about diminishing marginal benefit. I'm not really sure. I've never heard that, but I'm sure he's always got good points. I'm not sure what kind of potentiation effect has been reported doing a variation instead of more down sets. I think there's more of an effect.
I think that's a product of training age. So those who are more advanced trained benefit from having increased variation within the session versus those who are more beginners or more moderate should kind of stick to block style choices.
Yeah. Says, I don't really have a question, but I'd really like to hear your thoughts and recommendations regarding this matter. Well, I guess you heard them. Just make sure that when you think of all of these concepts, you're thinking of them in a context of a periodized plan with distinct phases, limitations. So your question presupposes a pure optimality, which it does not exist. What phase is it? If it's hypertrophy phase and your quads are your focus, clearly adding more high bar pause volume is the answer. If your phase is a strength phase and it's getting closer to the meet, you don't need to have high volumes, and specificity is king and higher weight is king. So the downset should come in the form of low bar squats. Once you figure out what phase you're in and what your goal is for that phase, how it structures into other phases, a lot of these questions solve themselves. You're looking sometimes for a what's best answer, but there's only a what's best for a phase. It's like asking what the best car is. Were you racing, or are you picking up groceries, or are you picking up, coal
kids from the soccer match?
Right? Are you picking up coal from the local dump? A truck is better. A car that has lots of back seats and maybe a station wagon is better for one of those things, and a race car is better for another. There's no such thing as the best car; it just doesn't exist. And then he says, I thought about implementing more variations. Let's say 3 squat variations to be able to rotate 2 of them while keeping the competition low bar squat during the 3 strength mesos, taking the best of specificity variation. They add the drop sets in the last meso, making it more specific for the peaking cycle. See, now we're thinking. So I would say you got 3 strength mesos. The first one squats after your low bar squats. The second one could be high bar heavy squats, not paused. And the last one could be more low bar squatting or take away the down sets altogether. Another thing is be really careful doing a lot of down sets with low bar. You're going to fuck your shit up. You're going to mess up your shoulders, wrists, and elbows. If you haven't yet, it's coming soon. So I would say that the more sparingly you can use low bar squatting closer to that peaking time, the better. That's it. I think that's our thoughts.
I think it's a good point. And low bar squat is one you don't really typically downset a whole bunch. Yeah. Just because it's
enough is enough. It's super fatiguing, and then add your stuff. And sometimes you don't add volume, like typically it's all volume. But look, when you're in the last strength phase prior to a peaking phase, you do 4 sets of low bar squats, but that's your workout. You're done. There's nothing else to do. All right. So
Nick asked us.
Nick says, I don't travel because I'm super boring and I hate the world. But can you talk about a bit about how you guys alter diet and training while traveling since you're on the road? Well, I'll start with my much simpler example. I had kind of a choice of when to start phases and when to end them. I was going to be massing during this Australia trip, but I actually cut my mass a little bit short for a couple of reasons, but one of them is that during traveling, it's really hard to get a lot of quote-unquote clean food. And I'm doing an experiment, which so far has been going really well, and as it has with others, of very high-carb, very low-fat mass phase dieting. It's really hard to eat low fat on the road if you have to get a lot of calories in. If you don't have to get a lot of calories in, it's low fat's just fine. Just eat mostly protein food. But combination high carb, low fat really restricts you. And also we're moving around so much, and we have to get from one seminar. We had taken 5 plane flights within Australia itself. It would be really tough to get in the kind of training volumes that I need to really stimulate myself. So what I did was I just did a maintenance phase, and I'm in a maintenance phase right now, which means I only train maybe 4 times a week. And my diet is relatively moderate fats, moderate carbs, relatively, normal calories. That means I get to eat a little bit of food here and there. I'm actually sort of maintaining a little bit mini cutting. So I'm just not eating excessively, and I'm losing weight. And it's fine for me. And as far as traveling, protein bars go a super long way. They have them all over. And then when you're eating at restaurants, just make the better choices. You don't have to have pizza every night. Have it every other night and have some lean chicken instead every now and again, and you'll be just fine. James, you and Mel are cutting, so you got the bigger.
Yeah, I got something to say about this.
All right.
I get this all the time, and I'm not trying to call any individuals out, but I get emails periodically, week to week, that's like, oh, hey, James, I'm traveling. I won't be able to train or diet. What should I do? You know what? I hate to say it, bullshit. We travel for a living. We travel all over the place within the U.S. We travel internationally. There has only been one instance that we had a harder time making good diet choices and getting all the training that we needed. And that was when we were in Thailand. And unfortunately, the king had died. So a lot of the businesses were closed around the times we wanted to train. And the food choices in Thailand are delicious, but not the most healthy. Everything else, like we found a place to train in the upper northern Norway in the Arctic Circle. We were able to stay on our diets. A lot of it is not an issue of can, it's an issue of will you make those choices, right? It's not that you can't do it, it's that you don't want to do it because it's difficult, right? Nobody said that traveling and staying on your diet stuff is easy. It does take a little bit of effort, but here's a couple things to keep in mind. One, if you are traveling internationally or within the US, there's almost always access to gyms. I don't want to hear that I couldn't find a gym, right? So we landed in Brisbane, and there's tons of gyms here. There's a bunch of 24-hour gyms. I have an Anytime Fitness membership. My membership worked here. We were jet lagged. I got to go train at like 5 in the morning whenever I wanted to. I just got my key fob, boop, scanned in. Didn't even have to search for a gym in the area. We just walked by, saw an Anytime Fitness downtown, and we were like, boom, we're good to go, right? So there's always gyms available. You can always look this stuff up ahead of time. I had one person who was like, I'm going to Austin. There's nowhere to train. I was like, are you kidding me? That's all they do down there is train and eat and hunt and do rodeos and stuff, whatever. There's always gyms available. You just have to do a little legwork ahead of time and find them, right? Maybe not all of them are 24-hour gyms. Maybe you got to take an Uber to get there, but there is always a gym available. Next, in terms of your diet, for the most part, I would recommend not doing any real structured massing or cutting while you are traveling.
If you have the choice.
If you have a choice. And especially if it's going to be for more than a week. If it's going to be for like a week or like 2 weeks or something like that, just do maintenance and don't worry about it. The other thing too, and this is something we probably should give more justice to, if you're traveling and you're going somewhere wonderful for 2 weeks that's not necessarily work related, just go out and enjoy it, right? You don't want to be sitting there like fussing the whole time. You should fuss a little bit, but not every day. Like, what am I going to eat? Oh my God, da-da-da-da-da. The easiest way to go about this, pack your own protein bars, pack your own protein shakes, and then just make smart, healthy choices. We landed in Brisbane. The first thing I did, we got to the airport. I went to the convenience store in the airport. What did they have? Low carb protein bars, right? Protein shakes. They were all there. Didn't have a problem. There's not been a single place that we went to in Australia thus far where we couldn't get clean food. Basically, I mean, Australia is just like America. I mean, there's everything you could possibly want.
Yep.
So the thing is, yeah, it does take a little bit of effort. So you're going to have to plan ahead, figure out where you want to train. I would say for the most part, switch to maintenance, even if it's just temporary. Just don't fuss too much about it. Bring plenty of protein bars, protein shakes, and then sometimes you can bring like non-perishable food items as well if you want to. If you're going to check a bag, stuff like that. Really easy. And then while you're out and about, stock up on protein bars, stock up on healthy snacks. Like if you find like this place has like a chicken salad that you can eat anywhere, any restaurant. They will make you chicken with vegetables. Unless you go to a straight up vegan place, right? Even then you can still do really well. But you can get like chicken, fish, steak, or vegetables just about anywhere. You might have to ask them. So just don't want to hear it. You know, like when people like they make it as an excuse, right? They're like, oh, I'm traveling, I can't do it. It's not that you can't, it's that you won't do it, right? So it's just one of those things, like be real about it.
The better question is, how do I do it?
How do I do it, right?
I'm going to be traveling. I know it's tough. How do I do it? We'll give you all the tips you need.
Yeah, so I mean, like we've been taking a little like mini documentary videos of everywhere we've been and just saying like, look, here's an example of like protein here. We packed our own stuff, like gym here, like easy peasy.
Yeah. 2 rules that you can fall back on when you're maintaining and you're traveling. 1, get enough protein. 2, don't go crazy on the calories. That's it.
Yeah.
Carbs and fats and meal timing and ratios and workout drinks. If you have to and it's too tough, forget about it. Daily protein, keep it high, gram per pound at least, and then calories, just don't go nuts. A great way not to go nuts is this. Every other meal that you eat can be just a lean protein source, maybe with some veggies, like a protein shake or a protein bar or just some chicken or something or some steak. every other meal. Every other meal than that can be fun, pizza, hot dogs, crazy Thai food, whatever. That if half of your meals are mostly just protein, you're not going to gain a whole lot of weight. Over 2 weeks, it's not going to be a big deal. Remember, folks, the way people gain a ton of weight, come back like 10 pounds heavier from vacation, is every meal is pounding it in. Just cut that in half. And then every other meal, eat nice. And then that means you can have 2 or even 3 meals a day of straight up bullshit and probably do just fine.
Yeah. And if you are cutting, like Mel and I are both cutting on this trip, another thing you can do to do yourself a favor is don't stay in a hotel. Stay at an Airbnb. Like we got an Airbnb and we lucked out. Our location is actually right next to the gym. It's also right next to the grocery store, and it's also right next to the liquor store, which worked out really well for me. Maybe not for you.
Not sure.
But here's the deal, right? Like we landed, we got here, we got an Airbnb with a kitchen. First thing we did, we went to the grocery store, got some relatively healthy snacks, and we're good to go. So if you are cutting when you're traveling, are you going to be eating a lot of protein bars and not getting to pig out on the local cuisine? Yes. But guess what? That's what you would have been doing at home anyway, right? So it's like slightly more inconvenient. You're going to be eating just more Quest bars, more of those horrible Costco, Kirkland protein bars. But it's the same thing, right? You just got to pack those in, eat clean food when you're out and about. Don't go crazy on the portion sizes, and it's all good.
Yep.
Yep. Cool.
So, Felipe Machado asks, a very advanced question as usual. I've been massing on Broderick's approach, fixed fat, fixed protein, and filling up with carbs, and I have a few questions about it. By the way, it has been great. I found that it's also been great. Though inconvenient, I think it's very effective. Number one, 20 to 25% of my total carbs are coming from maltodextrin and intra-post-workout shakes and post-workout meals. Considering that the rest are fruits and whole grains, would that much of maltodextrin be somewhat bad? I would say that you probably need to check into the emergency room because you are dying inside. A mere gram of maltodextrin has been shown to kill animals that weigh less than a gram, and that gram was dumped on them, crushing them. That is the only way maltodextrin is bad for you. Half your diet can come from it. As long as it's working out in your macros and calories, you'll be just fine. So you can just forget worrying about that right away.
I think the only thing is like if you're having trouble with your bowel movements, like if it's other than that.
Yeah. Otherwise you're good. Not that many fruits and vegetables on top, you'll be just fine.
Yeah.
If I used only healthy carbs to increase my calories, the proteins contained in them would make me drop too much of my quality proteins. Don't change your quality proteins. Just don't do that. I would say meat about 0.8 or 0.75% of your total daily protein with only high quality animal source proteins. And after that, just let the plant proteins fall where they may. If you're having trouble losing weight on that approach, look at your total calories instead of the protein right there. That's it. So don't ever make room for bullshit proteins by taking away your high quality proteins. Don't ever do that. That is the MyFitnessPal approach to fit your macros. You end up like having, like collagen protein that's randomly contained in your processed foods, and that's 90% of the protein you eat per day. Don't do that. Quality proteins, 75% of your protein intake, and on top of that, don't worry because the plant proteins will fit in. If you want to be really, really technical, this is a reason why high-level bodybuilders use very simple carb sources: white rice, plain pasta, white bread, and a couple of other sources, white potatoes, because they don't have a lot of ancillary proteins. Then you don't need to worry about that stuff. But for your case, just don't worry about them. Treat those proteins as meh, that just happens, and make sure you fill up on the good quality ones. Don't ever cut them.
There's actually really cool implications for that too. If you look at like the International Olympic Committee recommendations for athletes, they usually overdose carbohydrate drastically, where they're like, oh, you lift weights, 10 grams per kilogram, right? Why do they do that? Well, they also think that you're getting a sufficient amount of protein from those sources as well, when in reality, it's not.
I wouldn't bet on those. P.S. I have a few questions regarding pharmacology that I'm sure Dr. Mike would be able to talk about. Maybe. I don't know that much. People think I know a lot more than I do. However, I'm not sure if we're allowed to talk about it in here. No, we're not. Of course, it's not the what should I take, bro kind of question. That's good. Save those for bodybuilding.com forums. And then could you recommend somewhere to learn about it? Yes. Broderick. That's what he does. So hit him up. Or hit me up and I'll refer you to him and you'll learn all you want. Too much, really. The man is a never-ending volcano of knowledge on many subjects, including that one. So Broderick's your man for that. Renaissance does not have any stake in that sort of thing. So for legal reasons, as you can imagine. All right. Daniel says, if you can get to this, much appreciated. I think it's a coca. Nope. On to the next one. Shit, we're just trying to have a little bit of fun. How dare you? All right. Do you believe there is a usefulness in mini mass phase? Only one 4 to 6 training block can one actually add viable muscle size so long as they followed up with a maintenance phase? Yes. I don't. Of course.
Yeah.
Right. It's just not going to be as much muscle as if you did it for 12 weeks or something like that. Having 3 to 4 mesocycles of high volume massing, especially from a food standpoint, seems quite daunting.
I mean, it can.
How is that daunting?
I mean, it can. It's no more daunting than doing that much cutting. It's
much more daunting is the cutting part of it.
Yeah, I think the massing is uncomfortable and awful in a different way, but I think the cutting is usually universally way worse for most people. So
yeah. So then Daniel says, wouldn't it be more productive to keep one's mass phase to 1 to 2 blocks, but go all out on them? You should be going all out anyway. Maintain, mini cut, and repeat. Intuitively, this seems more efficient.
This is like an individual variation thing. Some people can manage doing the full 3 or 4 mesocycles of mass, not put on a ton of extra fat. Psychologically, it's good. Myself personally, personal story, I actually switched to doing 1 to 2 at a time because I usually put on a lot of weight and it really starts affecting my quality of life in many ways. So for me, if I do 3 months of massing, I won't do a good job. I'll start to fall apart and I'll just start putting on a ton of weight and getting sloppy and then feeling bad about myself.
Yeah. Daniel, to be completely honest with you, the literature is by no means clear as to which approach is better. I would always say that when the literature is unclear, try the middle of the road approach. So we were going to sit here and recommend to you that you mass 1 block at a time. No. But 2 to 3 blocks maybe as opposed to 3 to 4 is I think a good start.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And then essentially you see your peaks and valleys in your weight just become a little more narrow, right? You just don't put on 50 pounds on your mass phase anymore. Maybe you only put on 25 or even less, and then you don't have to lose as much either.
Totally. Clint Clark with his excellent background picture as usual says, "Good day."
Good day.
Oh, that's an Australian thing. Congrats on the release of the healthy diet templates. Thank you so much. They have been consuming entire nations already. Nick is pleased. I can just see them as nanobots, eating the fucking what's that building in the Eiffel Tower in Paris? Nanobots only go for worldwide monuments because that's you want to say after the nanobot wars, nothing was the same.
All of this healthy eating is killing France.
This is bullshit. Mommy, what did the Eiffel Tower look like back in 2017? Oh, it was beautiful, honey, but you will never know it. Wait, be quiet. The nanobots are coming. They're always around the corner. We never really won the war. You knew this already. So, yes. I also wanted to mention that I really enjoyed Dr. Mike's Worth and Purpose video. That is Mr. Scott Hoon's Worth and Purpose video because he's the producer, director, etc. on that. He's excellent. I will be pushing him later. But boy, did he movie that up.
Yeah, he knocks it out of the park. He does a great job on all of our stuff. He's awesome.
Unbelievable. He's our video guy. And when we're in LA, Shorty Sedang is our video guy, and you'll meet him at some point. He's awesome. It's great to be working with awesome people that know their shit.
Yeah, you don't have to tell them.
A bad video guy would be a terrible thing.
These transitions are just horrible. Hey, Mike, because
that'd be sweet. That's kind of cool. All right, what's the story behind the video? We wanted to make a video.
Him.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, didn't you watch the video? Please rewatch the video for your answer. Next question. So the story is. Usually more of my, we're all complex individuals with different parts of our personalities. Usually the more rosy part of my personality is what people see. And that's actually the main part of my personality. But I have kind of a little bit of a fucked up backstory and some not nice thoughts all the time. So kind of want to show that part to people. And it was part of hopefully a series we're going to be continuing where we're going through other RP coaches and potentially making short films about them just to let people know what RP is all about because we have these great people working for our company and nobody fucking knows them, So we thought, okay, well, people know me, but do they really know me? So we gave them some stuff that's very few people have heard of before. And then you should see my very good friends watch the video, just roll their eyes yes, everyone knows this bullshit about you, but it turns out that, most people don't. So yeah, the plan is hopefully we will be making more videos like this. The Nick Shaw one is going to be amazing, but not all of them are going to be super dark. Nick's a pretty happy guy with an awesome family and life, and his is going to be, James is going to be super boring.
Mine's going to be lame as hell. It's going to be like James Hoffman is the dungeon master in his D&D group and likes to watch anime.
It's just going to be disturbing when you realize he has no actual friends. The cat doesn't even like him.
Nope.
So and we'll be talking about Dr. Davis. She's back there. We'll be filming her. And it'll be all kinds of really cool stuff. Some of the individuals that work at RP have some pretty crazy backstories. just you wait for the little preview for RP Plus. The Jared Feather one is going to blow everyone's mind. You have never been an underdog like Jared Feather. It's completely insane, but that's something for later. So yes, we will be making more of those. Question regarding the physique templates. After completion of a body part or part-specific focus, is it acceptable to repeat another meso with a focus on the same body parts? Or is it best to embrace resensitization and relegate it to maintenance and focus on something else for meso or two? No, I think up to 3 mesocycles of one body part is totally fine. And I think at least 2 of those mesocycles can repeat most of the same exercises, just keep going higher in volume and intensity. And if that's not a viable option for you, if you seem to get a lot of stainless developed, then at the very least, just altering the exercises, but keep honing that body part. I think it's best when you do 2 to 3 mesocycles of a focus on a body part as opposed to changing the focus every single month.
I think the only thing I would add to that is if you're cutting, you might want to consider.
If you're cutting, there's no focus at all. Yeah. It should be just general training. But if you're massing, yeah, I think the rotation should be not every single meso. And says, might be here an example of how you guys would program a few mesos over the course of the year. So like, for example, on a massing phase, a whole massing phase of 3 months, I might do quads, chest, and back as my emphasis. And arms, shoulders, calves, hamstrings, I just kind of maintain the entire time, or just minimum effective volume. And then I do, a maintenance phase for everything. I do a mini cut or a mini cut, general training there, no specificity or no specific focus. And then I pick 3 other body parts and blast them for a whole mass phase. I don't think it should be like every other mass phase you change some stuff.
Yeah. So we've talked about that sometimes with people who are working around injuries where they might, like if their knees or their quads are bugging them, they might do a posterior chain focus for a little while. That might be an instance where you kind of wax and wane a little bit more, but I think what Mike said is spot on.
A couple mesocycles is always better than I think one.
Yeah.
You get a little bit too schizophrenic with that kind of stuff and end up accomplishing a whole lot of nothing. Yeah. So Tony Drotnall says this might be too basic. Tony, are you a basic bitch?
We're all basic bitches here.
Yeah. We had Starbucks. That's the first thing we found was Starbucks, and I got some Lululemon
pumpkin spice latte.
Now, don't tell anyone this, but we've got an RP idea that's just going to be amazing. Moo Moo Melon. Now, you may think that that's lawsuit worthy, but oh my God, we're ready. It's going to be amazing. So, in any case, this might be too basic, but I'm having a bit of trouble finding a lot of shoulder variations before hitting the shoulder plus arm specialization template. Would a slight forward lean on a bench significantly change the effect of upright rows? Yes. Mm-hmm. On side delts, yes. Mm-hmm. My joints do okay with conventional upright rows, but I'm unsure about hitting them with that much volume. Lean definitely feels better. Yeah, lean it up, man. Lean away. I think like a good 60-degree lean, right, or 30-degree lean can do a lot of cool things for you, and you can modify. Remember, there's just not upright rows barbell. There's dumbbell upright rows, cable upright rows. There's cable face pulls, which is basically or barbell face pulls, where you basically lean over even more.
Yeah, and then there's dumbbell face pulls, table face pulls, and then there's grip variations within all those, like medium wide.
Yeah, try wide grip rows, try close grip, try regular.
Even some basic ass exercises like front raise, lateral raise, reverse fly, like
you can lean, you can change them. Mm-hmm. Try to like alter which way you point, so you can just have your hand normal to grip for lateral raises, and then you can do pinkies up. You can do a 30-degree lean and pinkies up that lets you hit your side delts, but it really hits the shit out of your rear delts as well.
Yeah, so, and if you got healthy shoulders, you can even do some overhead pressing.
Yeah,
lots of options. You get creative.
Where's the recycle button?
That one. You're right next to it. Yeah. All right, guys. I think we got time for maybe 1 or 2 more. So if you got a couple more questions, throw them up there. We're gonna refresh it, see if you already did that.
It reads the other way.
Flip flops it, yeah.
Looks like that about covers it for now.
Yeah.
Quick rant, and then we get off. Myself, Dr. Mel, and Dr. James were lifting today at Anytime Fitness here in Brisbane, and it was early in the morning, like absurdly early, like 5 a.m. or something. And I know a lot of you watching and will be watching later are personal trainers who train others. Trainer who was pretty jacked, looked like he had more than a cursory familiarity with his toe in the pool before. That's a pool of pure testosterone, by the way. So
is that like the what Ra's al Ghul goes into, like the Lazarus pit? You know?
Ooh, I was gonna go with the absolutely, but I was gonna go with the Bane reference of you merely inject the trend.
It's good.
Bathing in trend would probably just
Both
irritate your
Batman
skin
jokes.
a lot and do nothing. Yeah. A lot of drug references. I mean, what's his name? Bane himself. I mean,
that's his whole shtick.
The boy is
on his whole shtick. He's just juiced up.
7. Because you could be like, Bane, what do you inject? And he'd be like, I don't. I have literal
IVs
tubes all the time. Man, shit, that is a commitment to drugs that Venom I will never have.
Get on that.
Venom. Is Venom around? When Venom starts to be sold, now we're talking. Up until it's all child's play. So in any case, this individual looked like he was considerably well-versed in training and in pharmacology, etc. So you could tell he knew what hard training looked like. He had a client squatting, and I use the term very loosely because it was basically like a dive bomb to nowhere. She was squatting to depth, but her toes and heels were doing all kinds of weird stuff. Like when basically you have 30% of the bottom of your shoe on the ground, and it's like knees are caving in and all this stuff. She was using a weight she couldn't control any better with, and he was helping her with the weight to lift it, but he wouldn't lower it so she could actually practice good technique. And when she was doing lunges, he was walking behind her saying stuff, and she was leaning on her leg with her arms because she wasn't sufficiently
zigzag.
Her lunges were zigzaggy and terrible. And
she was slumped over.
Totally. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's where a good personal trainer comes in to help you out. The thing is, this motherfucker was on his cell phone.
Yeah.
Checking texts.
Oi.
It's like, I wonder if there's any fucking texts, man.
We're going to go over to the Lungo later.
The Jimmo. So in any case, his Australian hood aside, they were both Australian, I assume, was just totally derelicting the entire process. I mean, my God, like checking your texts while the client is lunging. It's not good to check your texts when your client is.
Hold on.
Oh,
excuse me.
Sorry.
I'm checking my.
Can I keep talking?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with the webinar. So it's basically the same thing where it's like, okay, in between exercises, like if your grandmother sends you a text of like, hey, I'm pinned between 2 fucking trees, my race car blew up and I'm in it on fire. Maybe you could be like text grandma an emoji like in a frowny face or something, or like the poop emoji, like, oh, looks like you were right. But Jesus Christ, I mean, you could be a better trainer. So for those of you that are trainers, remember, your job is to be there attentive to the client is the only fucking person that matters the entire time because they paid you to matter. Had they never paid you, you could check your talking text as much as you wanted. And please, for the love of Christ, teach your clients good techniques so that they're not dive bombing the shit on themselves. It wasn't one of these situations where a personal trainer you can tell is trying to work with a client, trying to teach them stuff, and they just suck. Their technique sucks. Advanced folks like myself and Dr. Mel and Dr. James, we have sympathy for that situation because we train people before, and we know that when someone's working with someone, you don't judge the expertise of the trainer based on how good the client is doing an exercise. As long as it's clear that the trainer is not satisfied with the client, he can be like, okay, now let's try. And he's over there working, trying to figure it out clearly. And sometimes the trainer looks at you and you meet eyes and you're like, oh, and the trainer's like, I'm working with what I have here. But this guy was helping her with his hands lift more weight. Why?
Yeah. If you want a good way to lose clients, be disengaged from them while they're lifting.
And mess them up over long term by putting too much weight on them without good technique.
Turn your back on them while they're lifting, right? Like, not good.
Terrible.
Folks, we got to run. We're getting kicked out of our current apartment. We have to transfer over to another one. Exactly. Thanks for joining us at RP Plus, guys. I know we had to change the time again. Thanks for being patient with our travel. Hopefully we got to all your questions. And as always, keep posting questions in the forum. If they're quick and easy, I'll do my best to get to them. And if they're really complicated, we'll save them for the webinar. All right, guys. We're leaving you from Brisbane. Hopefully we'll catch up soon. Peace out.